Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Working hard in here on the lockdown. Boom, boom, boom. Sipping tea. Learning new technology. Boom, boom, boom. Gotta find something good to eat. Do-doom, doom. Washing dishes, trying to keep neat. Locked up, locked down. Don't know how long COVID-19 will be around. I said locked up, locked down, and I don't know how long COVID-19 will be around. Now, ain't that the blues? Welcome to episode 2 of Last Date, an original series that offers a glimpse into the Blue Morning Quintet's last performance at Delicious at the Dunbar before the COVID-19 lockdown. This episode of Last Date features BMQ's rendition of Cannonball Adderley's signature tune. It's the blues. It's called Work Song, which was composed by his brother. It's a great cornetist, by the way, who penned the song about 60 years ago. Now, it occurs to me that my father was a blues man. He'd play his guitar like B.B. King or Muddy Waters or Johnny Guitar Watson. On the other hand, I'm a jazz man. But despite our differences in tastes, musical tastes, we both agree that Work Song was a great song. So, shall we then get on with it to the Blue Morning Quintet's performance of Work Song by Nat Adderley at Delicious at the Dunbar on February 23rd, 2020. What? Wait, you say? Wait for what? Oh, the blues. The blues. What is the blues? Very excellent. Very good question. Excellent. Tell you what, why don't we listen to this performance by the Blue Morning Quintet, and then we will pose that question to the BMQ roundtable that follows the performance. Enjoy. Welcome to the BMQ's roundtable discussion of the recording that you just heard, which is Work Song, a jazz tune, but it's, well, it's actually a blues tune. It's a jazz blues written by Nat Adderley. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us on this roundtable, and we'd love to have you. We're going to have a two-part discussion. Part one, we just warm up. And we want to talk a little bit about what is jazz and what is blues. And then we'll get into our discussion about the recording itself. So let me set this up for the first part of the discussion. What is jazz? Now, Wynton Marsalis posed that very question to one of the co-founders of the Modern Jazz Quartet, John Lewis. And John Lewis said, he gave like a three-part answer. He said, number one, jazz has to swing or it has to seem to swing, right? Swing or seem to swing. Secondly, he said, jazz has to contain an element of surprise. And third, jazz has to embody an eternal search for the blues. So there's the connection between jazz and blues. Now the second quote, what is the blues? And there I go to that quintessential blues jazz singer, Billie Holiday, who said jazz is it's just a kind of a mixed up sort of thing that you just have to feel, all right? That's the background. So just given that background, introduce yourselves one by one. Tell us what your instrument, your name, your instrument, any reflections you have about, jazz, the blues, and the connection between the two.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. My name is Marion Newton. I play bass for the BMQ. My thoughts on jazz and blues, basically, coming from a southern town, small southern town, I pretty much grew up with the blues. We had a juke joint maybe 3 blocks from my house, and at nighttime, my lullaby was hearing the bass and the drum, because that's all you can hear from that distance was boom, 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 all night long. But my thought about blues, the blues is, to me, is something where a person is singing about love or pain or suffering, right? And since it basically originated in the South, Mississippi, some people say, that's what I think about blues. When I think of blues, I think about some guy struggling. Right? But the jazz, on the other hand, it has elements of the blues, but it takes the blues to another level, in my opinion, where you can just improvise and open up, and just, they both let you play what you feel, but in jazz, you have more freedom to just be free.
My name is Ricardo MoWatt, Ricky for my family members. I am the drummer of the Blue Morning Quintet. Great question, Randy. I pondered that as you sent that out earlier today. I grew up actually hearing both pretty much at the same time. My family was very musical, and I would listen depending on which family member I stayed with, I would hear the blues, and then on other family members, I'd hear jazz. So I never really thought there was a distinction between the two. But if I had to say what I thought the connection was, the blues tells the story of our people. I think it comes out of the Negro spirituals. I think it's an evolution. And if you look at where it started and how it evolved to jazz, I think jazz represents freedom, as Marion said. It has to have the element of swing. It has to emote feelings. So those are the roots of the blues. But as we know, jazz cats have taken it to the moon and back. You know, so the blues is always going to be what I call the bass line. But jazz gives us the opportunity to really expand on the music as far as our imagination can go. The last thing I want to say about that is, and Randy had mentioned that your father was a blues man, but you were a jazz man. And so you made that distinction clear. I remember hearing, if you remember this guy's name, Memphis Slim. Memphis Slim came to Maastricht when I was in Holland. He was 75 years old, and he had this glee and this bright shyness in his eyes when he played the blues. And the jazz cats in the audience were flabbergasted because they understood the power of the blues. Now, in Europe, not to get too much off the subject, they love the blues and they love jazz. And so when he came through there, it just reaffirmed where the music came from, because in Europe, most of the folks play jazz because it's an extension of the music. But when they get the blues and when they get it in its rawest form, i.e. Memphis Slim, they're like, oh, this is where this came from. You know, so again, blues to me is the parent, if you will, the bass line. Is just one of the offsprings. I'll shut up by saying this. I think jazz music is the greatest music in the world. One man's opinion.
Right.
All right, guys. Excellent answers, excellent input, gentlemen. Great question, Randy. Again, my name's Greg Broadous. I'm the piano player for Blue Morning. I play other places as well. I would say my first exposure to jazz was in a barbershop. My dad he was a barber for many years. And there was a barbershop called Love's Barbershop in the Compton Rosecrans Plaza. And the owner would pipe in jazz. And that's where I got to listen to Rick Holmes, cats like Jay Rich, and Jim Gosa. All of those were the DJs of the day. And not only would they play the music, but they would talk about the background of the music, which it was just a joy, man, every time I'd go in the barbershop. And I just got hooked. But it'd be a long time before I really got serious about it. I think that jazz, well, let me say this. Louis Armstrong said there's really only two types of music: good music and bad music. Okay, that's what Louis said. It's either going to sound great or it's not going to sound good. And I would love to have consider myself as a musician that plays jazz, a musician that is steeped in gospel music, a musician who studies classical music so that I can have a vehicle to play jazz. Also R&B, which I don't consider myself an expert at, but it has influenced me. So all of that has helped me to get on this journey to try to just, I guess, perfect my jazz chops. And again, like, you know, the blues, as you guys were saying, birthed in the South, Mississippi Delta. And as you were saying, Ricardo, the spirituals and the work songs. And you all know the history about how the mulatto musicians down in Louisiana were classically trained. And once Jim Crow kicked in, then they had to deal with the blues cats. And that's basically how this thing got kicked off. Thank God, even in adversity, something beautiful came out, and it's called jazz, man. Yeah, that's it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Batson. I'm the guitarist for this great group of guys. and just happy to be here. I think the blues and jazz are basically the story of us as a people. I don't have a rich history playing it, but I have a rich history being involved in it. My grandmother actually taught me about jazz when I was 6 years old. She brought me in the living room, and Wes Montgomery was playing the guitar. He had a TV show or something like that at that time. And that sound got in my ear, and it was different than what most people were playing, actually, it was pretty popular, but he was playing different than everybody else was playing. That sound got in my ear, and I wanted to learn how to play. And I didn't pursue it because I tried to learn when I got back home. I tried to learn, and being left-handed, they'd give me the instrument, I'd turn it upside down, and they were like, "You can't learn how to play." You believe that? But I lived it just through listening for a long time. My grandmother turned me on to bossa nova as well. But I got interested enough in it when I was in my early teens. I was into the funk, I was into R&B, soul, and all of that. And I started hearing something out of a radio station in Cleveland, Ohio called WJCU at John Carroll University. Late at night, they play real jazz. And at that time, it was different than what everybody was listening to. And like Greg was saying, with the DJs off of Kago back in the day, these guys would explain it. Mm-hmm. So I started listening a little harder and a little deeper. And I did some studying on it. And I started to realize where the blues actually came from, coming from the field chants in Africa. And for some reason, from the beginning, I understood the call and response aspect of it. It made sense in a lot of the sing-song things my grandmother and my uncles and great uncles would be singing back and forth at their parties. I did more studying, and I started to understand what, the influence, how, like Greg was saying again, how the Creole musicians and the,
you're right,
the black musician and the blues musician got together because they
couldn't do anything else. Yeah.
No, they actually from the Creole musicians, the blues guys learned structure, and from the blues guys, the Creole guys learned swing. Mm-hmm. Creole. Now, I say it's the story of us because we used that same format when we were slaves to communicate back and forth, do things like get out of the South, help each other get places. It was interesting because on the blues and the gospel kind of grew up together. Okay?
Yeah.
What it is the plantation owners realized that they would get a more productive week out of the slaves if they gave them a half a day off on Saturday and let them have what they called a hoedown or have a party, and then go to church on Sunday. They would actually use the same music for both events. On Sunday, it was Near My God to Thee, but on Saturday night, it was Meet Me With Your Black Drawers On. Same thing. Okay? But the thing is that is a pattern.
That sounds like a good way to transition to the next part of our discussion.
Leave it to Paul.
Okay.
All right, gents. Thank you for that discussion. Introductions plus discussions of the blues, jazz, and the connection between the two. Now let's talk about our recording of that great Nat Adderley tune, Work Song. Speaking of that just falls right in line with the discussion we were having. And, it just reminds me of that definition of the blues that John Lewis gave. He talks about the swing, he talks about the eternal search for the blues, and he talks about the other thing, right? So what do you think of that recording?
The title, Work Song, kind of, take you back to the field hands and chain gangs and all that kind of stuff. And even the da 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 da, that's like them flinging those big heavy hammers,
Right.
So again, the blues, where it came from. It came from that, getting its roots from that type of situation. So yeah, I think that song really embodies that, lack of another word.
All right.
I loved it, and I love the way you did it, Randy, because you were doing your what's his name? I can't think of the saxophone player, the one that plays way behind the beat.
Oh, Dexter Gordon.
You were doing your Dexter that day, and it was great, man. And we were like, boom, boom, yeah. It was just, it fell right in. And my challenge was to realize this is an F minor blues that's not the norm, and you just got to kind of know it and check it out. And once I got it, I loved it, man. It's just a great, I love the structure on this thing. I love the structure, the simplicity and the structure, and it's withstood the test of time, man. And yeah, Marion, you got to hit it. What comes to my mind is the chain gang.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, love it.
Next.
Real quick, can I chime in?
Sure.
So everybody said pretty much what I was thinking. Marion, I'll start with you. I heard you say it's the perfect combination of jazz and blues, right? Or blues and jazz, if you will. And Greg, you were spot on when you mentioned Randy's timing.
Yeah.
Because as the drummer, when we started the song, I'm like, okay, I've got to pay attention because it's the kind of song, it's not going to just come on the, it's the one, but you got to pay attention to the melody because that's really where it's going to go.
That's
so
right.
There were times when I had to hit the one, and there were times where I had to hit the and one, right? To understand where you were, Randy, so that when we finally get to where we were free, we were on track.
Yeah, so we were having, it was like a call and response, right? We were having a communication.
So it really was a great way, because I'm like, are we off or are we on? But either way, as the drummer, we're on. But back to how I have to approach it, I got to make sure that it's all tied together, you know. And so the way you played it was great because you did your own thing. I didn't know that you were doing a Dexter Gordon. What was he doing, Greg?
It's like how Dexter plays behind that beat, but he's on the beat.
And I like that. And I like that because it gives it a different flavor. You know what I mean? We're not all, it's not rigid, for lack of a better word. Okay. But again, in terms of the song itself, a perfect example of the blues and jazz. Now, I don't know if that was intentional or we just picked it or whatever, but it fit right in because it starts with the work and the hammer and all that good work stuff. And then we get free when we get into the improvisation.
Great. Paul?
God, everybody pretty much said everything I would say about that tune. It does feel like, you know, it feels like a story like that. It feels like that. I did like the way you brought that in because that tune, I think one of the things I have to continue to think about when playing that tune is that this tune is a feel tune. It's like somebody just said about the rigidity. It's not there. This song isn't about that. And you do so many things with it. Like when the way you sailed that melody out there, it's like you were trying to tell a story with some feeling. And Ricardo, you were really sharp to pick up on that. You know, the thing is that it's a feel tune, and you know the way it can, the different places it can go is, you know, it's just endless.
Well, you know, on the element of surprise that John Lewis talks about, when we took that song out, you know, the melody. So when I played it, and I came in, and I blew it. And I hit it was a totally different lick, totally different melody. So, you know, so that's an element of surprise for me. So what I did, I just kept that. So I kept playing that new lick.
Hey, jazz.
You're gonna have a variation on the melody, and nobody's gonna know except you guys and me. Right? Because if you just
and Ricardo followed you like Miles straightened out a Herbie. Miles played something. Herbie said
I had to follow him, man. I didn't have a choice. I'm like, where's it? What? My first thing was what? Okay.
All right, gents. I wish we could talk about this longer. And just let me say to the audience, well, thank you all for hanging out with us in the BMQ Roundtable. And hopefully you'll come back next time for episode 3 of Last Date. Signing out.
All right.
Goodbye, guys.
Okay.
Good night, guys.
Take care.
Later.